Hello, everybody. This is Gerald Salenti, and we are honored and privileged to have with us again Judge Andrew Napolitano on December 7th, 2022, a man of peace, freedom, liberty, justice, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that's been taken away from us, robbed from us, and a man that knows the Constitution and the Bill of Rights upside down, inside out, the facts of what the founding fathers wanted for we, the people of the United States, that have been taken away from us. Judge, thanks so much for being here.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Gerald. Thank you for having me.
Judge, there's all this news which isn't news. Let's go back to what they call news. Remember what happened with this guy Johnny Depp and somebody heard that I never heard about?
It was one of the most disgusting trials in the modern era, and the press just printed every crazy foul thing that each one accused the other of having done.
And that's what they call news.
Yeah,
that's what they call news. It's crap that they shove down our throat. And of course, that's why people subscribe to the Trends Journal. We're real journalists, and we give you facts, information without putting a spin on it. And we wouldn't cover a piece of useless crap like that that's not going to make any difference in your life. And the same thing is going on right now, but it does make a difference in our life in talking about a piece of nobody that only, one bad rap would care about. And that's this guy Kanye West, or it's Ye West now, or West to East. I don't know who he is, but I know who he is, but I could care less about it. But the big issue, of course, is that what he's speaking about and how he's speaking about it, and should he be speaking about it, and do we have a right to protect the hate speech that he allegedly is speaking about?
Well, he's saying he admires the Nazis and he loves Hitler. Now, that, of course, is the third rail in the American public square. He touched the third rail by saying that. I wrote my piece, Protecting the Speech We Hate, because hate speech is protected. I'm not a fan of his. I don't pursue rap music. I asked them to lower it when I'm in the gym. I tried to get them to put Beethoven on once. They thought I was crazy. He has made himself a billionaire with this rap music amongst a class of people that likes it. And then suddenly he's come out with this pro-Nazi, pro-Hitler stuff. So it is these hard cases. It is this offensive language. It is this hate speech that tests the First Amendment, because there are people that want to silence him. And I argue that just as you can think what you want, you can say what you think, no matter what it is. That's America. This is your natural right to say what you want, and the government can't take that away from you. Private bulletin boards can. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, who just bought Twitter so that there would be no sanctions on it, just kicked Alex Jones off and now kicked this fellow Ye off because of the content of their speech. The government can't punish you because of the content of your speech. The First Amendment says that, but a private bulletin board can. Is the private bulletin board doing the government's bidding? If it is, then the First Amendment protects you. If it's not, if it's truly private, they can kick off whoever they want. I got kicked off of TikTok for 5 days because I argued that the federal government's prosecution of Stuart Rhodes, the head of the Oath Keepers, for a conspiracy to overthrow the government of the United States. They charged 5 people with conspiracy to overthrow the government of the United States. It would be impossible for the 5 to do that. So I argued that a conspiracy that is impossible to carry out should not form the basis of a prosecution. It's a waste of the government's time and resources. TikTok said, you're encouraging violence. You're out for 5 days. We appealed it. I lost the appeal. Now you have the other extreme. Now you have the state of South Dakota, run by conservative Republicans, who are banning TikTok. They're saying to people that live in South Dakota, you can't log on to this in the privacy of your own home. That is just as bad. That is the government telling people what to read and watch and listen to, and the First Amendment prevents the government from doing that.
You know, you're talking, going back to this, about this guy talking about Hitler and how he likes Hitler. You know, there's a place that most people never knew anything about up until this year, called Ukraine. And they had a group over there called the Azovs that were very pro-Hitler. And now they're renaming the streets and after the people of that Azov group, that Hitler group in Ukraine. But so it's okay for that Hitler group to say and do what they want, and the American people supporting them. But this other guy can't talk about that he's a Hitler fan.
So the group you're talking about is not only a political group, according to our friend and colleague, Scott Ritter, it's a military group. It's a rogue military group that doesn't comport with the authority of the state, but it does receive American dollars. And when Vladimir Putin says he's fighting Nazis, with respect to this group, he literally is fighting Nazis.
Yeah.
And to make it even more absurd, you and I, because we're of a certain age group, we like to read the Financial Times, you know, the famous salmon-colored newspaper. And some of their editorials used to be great. However, they just named Vladimir Zelensky the person of the year. And here's what they said about him. Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky has embodied the resilience of his people. He has ensured Western unity and become a standard bearer for liberal democracy in the contest with authoritarianism. He's the most corrupt authoritarian leader in the Western world today. They have it exactly 180 degrees wrong because they subscribe to that same Anthony Blinken, Klaus Schwab mentality. We got to get Putin. Here's our chance to push him out and liberate Russia. We have to go around the world looking for monsters to slay. You and I, Phil Giraldi and Scott Ritter, talked about this at your rally for peace last July in that beautiful garden just a few yards from where you're seated now. When we go around the world, spreading democracy, we don't spread democracy, we spread violence. And that's what's happening in Ukraine.
The clown show of what the media has become. Time magazine, which is no time at all, it's last week's news next week, a piece of useless crap. At one time, it served a purpose, decades.
Well, one time it was at the top of the heap. I didn't even know it's around anymore.
Yeah. Well, guess what? You know who
did they name
the year is?
Person of the year? Who did they name?
Zelensky.
Oh. Well, I mean,
again, this is totally going back to what you talk about hate speech. Our freedom, our justice, this is one big propaganda network. They go after who they want to go after, build up who they want to build up. And it's, it's like George Carlin said, it's one big club and you ain't in it. And the club is Murder, Inc. That's better known as Washington, D.C.
Well, Washington, D.C. is supplying $60 billion. Biden wants to get another $37 billion authorized before the Republicans take control of the House. I don't know what he's worried about there. The Republicans are behind this as much as Democrats, but he wants another $37 billion now. So this money goes into a pot and then he dispenses it. It's not spent all at once, but he wants enough to spend for his remaining 2 years in office in case he has a problem with the House of Representatives. And every time this comes up, Rand Paul in the Senate and Thomas Massie in the House make a very rational proposal. Okay, let's have an audit. Let's have somebody over there working for the U.S. government who can certify how the money's being spent. And the Republicans won't even allow that to come to a vote. So where is this money going? A lot of it is very corrupt. Another mutual friend of ours, Paul Craig Roberts, one of the most fearless human beings on the planet, is alleging that George Soros and this character, Sam Bankman-Fried, and his now bankrupt $30 billion scheme, I won't call it what they're calling it because it's anti-Italian, were involved in getting money to Zelensky. That Zelensky is actually engaged in some sort of a money laundering scheme, laundering taxpayer dollars or money borrowed in the taxpayer's name. And that's one of the reasons that the Rand Paul, Thomas Massey proposals keep losing, because the government does not want the public to know how this money is being spent. And some of it, Gerald, is cash. It's not just military equipment. And the military equipment is coming from our substance, that it's military equipment that our military is supposed to have in case somebody attacks us. Unlikely, but we're supposed to have it. It's not there. It's being destroyed by the Russians in a mud pit in Ukraine.
You know, again, in your article, because it's all connected, protecting the speech we hate. And, you know, you keep talking about, in the articles you always write about, you keep going back and talking about the founding fathers and what this country was built upon, based upon, and how the people fought for freedom. And that's really been just taken away from us at every level. And when you talked about being censored on the media, on the social media, let's go back to when the whole internet revolution began. Remember what they said? This was going to be an opportunity for anybody to be free to say and do anything they wanted to on the internet without any control over it. That's how it was sold back in the early 90s.
Correct.
For those of us that are old enough to remember that. And now it's censorship of the first degree.
Correct.
And
I'm trying to think of the word. It's a deceptive censorship. So we're only learning now what Twitter censored in 2020. It's a private bulletin board. They can censor who they want. But of course, at the time, they claimed there was no there with respect to Joe Biden and his kid in Ukraine and where their money came from. The public should have had an opportunity to know about that. So Twitter's in cahoots with the Democratic National Committee. They can do it just like Fox could be in cahoots with the Republican National Committee. But if Twitter's in cahoots with the Department of Homeland Security or with the FBI, then we have a different story. Then we have private business doing the government's dirty, unconstitutional bidding. Then we have very serious matters that have to be exposed in federal courtrooms.
You know, you again with your article about, you know, hatred and protecting the speech we hate. Look how they teach us to hate Russia, how they taught us to hate Vietnam, how they keep teaching us to hate North Korea, how they taught us to hate Iraq. That kind of hatred is okay. That's government hatred. You're supposed to hate what they want you to hate.
Correct.
But when you hate what they don't want you to hate, then you're blacklisted.
So remember in George Orwell's novel 1984, a character named Emmanuel Goldstein, who was Big Brother. It turned out he didn't exist. The government made him up, but he was the person that the government wanted everybody to hate. Just like now they want us to hate Putin, and you're right, they wanted us to hate Saddam Hussein, hate North Vietnam, because hatred unifies people, and the government knows that. It's a tool the government uses. The government is the most hateful thing around because it uses the very tools it condemns. It steals, it lies, it hates, it kills, and it does so with impunity.
Yep. Boy, you just said it. government about hatred. How did you say that again? The government is the most.
The government is the most hateful entity on the planet. It uses the tools it claims to condemn. It lies, it steals, it hates, it kills, and it does so with impunity.
Oh, and this is why, we really need somebody like you to be the president of the United States and leading a new third party. I'm serious about this. You go on in the beginning of your article, and you had told me that you heard this when you went to Mass last week. Those who lack the courage to change history are sadly doomed to become its objects. And this was from Reverend Father Alfred Delp, and he was a Jesuit.
Executed by the Nazis because he preached freedom of religion for all persons, including the Jews. And of course, it was a crime to do that at the time. And for that, he was hanged. And this
isn't ancient history.
Oh, no. This happened just a few years before you were born and a few years before I was born.
1 year before I was born. He was killed in 1945.
Correct.
So this isn't ancient history. And this is German. This is Europe. And people don't realize that Germany, it was in the 30s, it was the top of the world in terms of science, philosophy, culture. Berlin was grander than Paris before it was bombed out.
Right.
So people don't realize that this isn't, and it's right in front of our eyes again. And the big picture here is that, well, it's the cover of the Trends Journal. And that is, stop bitching and join the fight for freedom. And it goes back exactly to what this reverend said, in the sense that those who lack the courage to change history are sadly doomed to become its objects.
Correct.
And I am sick and tired of people complaining and not doing anything. We're doing things. We're just not talking. We have the rallies, the peace rallies. We're trying to get new third parties moving. We're attempting to make things happen. And if people don't do something to change it, I am so sick and tired of people complaining and not doing anything. I've had it.
Well, I think that most people watching and listening to us now are of the same mindset. They're sick and tired of Tweedledee, Tweedledum, Democrats, Republicans. There's actually a little bit of a revolt going on amongst House Republicans by some libertarian-leaning conservative Republicans who are revolting against the rubber stamping leadership in the House. And I'm going to have on Friday Congressman Andy Biggs. I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I do agree with him on getting rid of Republican leadership in Congress and changing it to people that have beliefs that are rooted in freedom. And they're challenging Kevin McCarthy, and McCarthy doesn't have enough votes to become speaker. I'm usually not interested in these internecine battles, but if the Republican Party can become one based on morality and based on freedom, it's a long shot.
If, as we used to say in the Bronx, if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. If.
All right.
There's no if.
I have Ritter on today at 3:30 Eastern.
But again, there's no if with this Republican or Democratic Party. It's a crime syndicate. They're murderers and thieves.
It is.
You got a couple of people in there that want to change things, but the whole it's a corrupt system.
It is.
Look who the clown is that's still the majority leader in the Republican Party.
McConnell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at it.
He tells all the other Republicans how to vote, and with the exception of 2 or 3, they're in lockstep behind him.
And how could any man look up to a clown like him? How could anybody swallow the crap spewing out of McConnell's mouth? And that's why I'm saying there's no if in this.
Yeah.
The only if is if we don't have a new third party, we are going to keep going down the rabbit hole of hell that has destroyed our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. All the things that you write about each week about how our constitutional rights are being robbed from us.
And how 50% of our income goes right to the government. We work for the government or the government works for us. That's not even a rhetorical question anymore. We work for the government, at least for the first 6 months of the year.
Could you imagine this? Could you imagine this? And again, if the people don't stand up and unite, and again, I want to do it in a peaceful way because there's no sense that's the only way it's going to happen. And we could turn this around. There are enough people that have had it. And again, you look at the data, you look at the polls, the people aren't happy with either of the political parties, the people that know better. It's time for a new third party, and it's time for you to be president of the United States, is the way I feel about it.
Well, it's certainly time to be talking about a new third party, that's for sure. One based on peace and freedom, because we have the opposite of that today when this kind of stuff is lauded and we are financing it.
There are more, I see more Ukrainian flags in America hanging up than American flags.
Yes, same here. Same here in northern New Jersey. Yes.
And anybody that wants to go support Ukraine, go over there, put on your military drag uniform, go fight and die, send your money, send your wife, send your kids, send yourself, send your partners, go there. It's not, I am an American. I believe in the founding fathers. No foreign entanglements. But again, going back to the crucial issue of the day, Judge Napolitano for president. That's what I want to say.
You're very kind, my dear friend.
Again, it's not about me or kindness. It's about what this country needs. And again, what the president of the United States should be doing, and not doing nothing more and nothing less, is just abiding by the Constitution. We don't need the government to tell us one more thing to do. We don't need one more law. If I was running for office in New York, I'd close down the Senate and the Assembly. We don't need any laws. We don't need anybody. You're not representing us. You're only representing the clowns that give you money, that they pay you off to do what they want.
When Barry Goldwater was running against LBJ and was asked what bill do you first want to sign, what new law, he said, I don't want any new laws. I want to get rid of about 2/3 of what we have.
Yeah.
And at the time, there were only about 3,500 federal criminal statutes. There's now 5,500 federal criminal statutes. There isn't a human on the planet that's conversant with all of them.
No. Again, you know about this more than anybody. And we really need you at a much higher level to change the course of the history that we're headed toward, because the history is hell. When they come out and put a clown boy, a comedian, a guy that played the comedian and a sitcom as the president of Ukraine and played the piano with his penis, and then becomes president of Ukraine, and he's the man of the year, you know how bad this thing is and how fast it's going down. So as the World War III escalates and we go into nuclear war, everybody will really be happy about it.
Well, we predicted it, Gerald. I hope we're wrong, but I think we're right. I think the war started already.
Oh, it has started already. As a matter of fact, Lavrov came out last week, the Russian foreign minister, and said the United States is at war with Russia.
Yes.
And so we have to stop this. And we're into the holiday season, and the holiday season is peace on earth, goodwill to all. And again, I the only way I see a way out of this is for you to lead the charge.
All right, my dear friend. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. And we'll see you next week.
All the best.